A midnight phone call reveals a secret buried for 20 years. Someone's still watching, and they've never forgotten. A lavish birthday party, a powerful mother, and one accusation that shattered everything. From this moment on, you're no longer a Carter. And thus, the survival game began. The soft yellow lights bathed the grand hall of the Carter mansion. The sound of clinking glasses echoed, blending with bursts of fake laughter and hollow social pleasantries. Ethan stood silently in the corner of the room, his hand gripping a glass of red wine tightly, his eyes fixed on the woman who was the center of attention, Margaret Carter, his mother. 28 years old already, Ethan. When will you stop clinging to your mother's skirt? A teasing remark from an uncle rang out, causing a few people nearby to burst into laughter. Ethan merely smirked, too familiar with these sarcastic comments wrapped in a facade of family affection. But what he didn't know was that tonight, what awaited him wasn't just meaningless jests. When the clock struck 9, Margaret stood up, raising her glass of wine, her smile radiating gentleness, the same mask she had worn for years. "Thank you all for coming to my birthday party." Her voice flowed sweetly like honey. Ethan sighed, bracing himself for the usual speech. But then, her tone suddenly shifted, cold and sharp like a blade slicing through the air. "By the way, I have an important announcement about my beloved son, Ethan Carter." The entire room fell silent. Ethan frowned, a sense of unease creeping down his spine. "Ethan," Margaret turned to him, her eyes gleaming with a look he had never seen before. "You are no longer a member of this family." Whispers began to ripple through the crowd like waves. Ethan stood frozen, unable to react before Margaret delivered the final blow. "My son here has been embezzling the family funds, selling out the Carter name to pay off his gambling debts. From today onward, he no longer holds any rights to the family's assets." Crash! The wine glass slipped from Ethan's hand, shattering on the marble floor. He stared at his mother in disbelief. "What the hell are you talking about?" Ethan growled. Margaret sighed and gestured to the butler. Immediately, 2 burly men stepped forward and threw a thick dossier onto the table. Photos, bank statements, even casino tickets spilled out. "Here's the evidence. Are you going to deny it?" Her voice dripped with fake pity. Ethan quickly flipped through the documents. His heart pounded wildly when he saw his personal information, his signature, but everything was forged. "No, this can't be. I never." He stumbled backward, his mind reeling. "Get him out of here." Margaret waved her hand as if dismissing a stranger. The 2 guards grabbed Ethan by the arms. He struggled, but it was useless. "Mother!" Ethan shouted, his eyes blazing red. "What are you doing? What is this conspiracy?" Margaret stepped closer, whispering into his ear, her voice colder than ice. "This isn't your home anymore, Ethan. I kept you around because you were useful. Now, you're worthless. Leave before I make you disappear forever." The mansion doors slammed shut behind him. The night wind cut through his thin coat. Ethan stood alone on the deserted road. No wallet, no phone. Everything had been confiscated. Then, a vibration from his coat pocket. Ethan froze. It was his backup phone, always hidden as a precaution from his days in cyber operations. A message flashed on the screen. "If you want to live, run now. They're coming. NG." Before he could question who NG was, headlights pierced the darkness. A black SUV sped toward him at a terrifying speed. Without thinking, Ethan turned and ran. Tires screeched, and the engine roared behind him. The night began to swallow him whole. The roar of the engine behind him sounded like a predator savoring its prey's fear. Ethan sprinted through the darkness, his leather shoes skidding across the damp pavement. There was no time to think, only to run. Run to survive. The black SUV, like a steel beast, closed in within mere meters. Its headlights cast Ethan's trembling shadow long and thin on the road. Bang! A gunshot rang out. A bullet grazed Ethan's shoulder, tearing through his coat. Warm blood seeped down his chilled skin. Damn it! Ethan swerved sharply into a narrow alley, his heart pounding like it would burst. He knew this neighborhood well. After all, he had grown up here. But tonight, the familiar streets had transformed into a deadly labyrinth. The SUV couldn't follow into the alley, but heavy footsteps echoed behind him. They were on foot now, and they weren't here to capture. They were here to kill. His phone vibrated again. Right side, there's a metal gate. Enter code 1945. Hurry. NG. Ethan's eyes darted around until he spotted an old gate nearly hidden beneath creeping vines. He dashed toward it, his bloodied hand trembling as he punched in the code. Click. The gate creaked open just as footsteps closed in behind him. Ethan slipped through, quietly pulling the gate shut as a hitman rushed past, unaware. Inside was an abandoned warehouse, dark and reeking of mold. Ethan crouched down, gasping for breath, sweat mixing with the blood dripping from his chin. Who the hell is NG? Ethan muttered, eyes locked on his phone screen. A call came through. Unknown number. He hesitated for a second before answering. Long time no see, Ethan. A calm, deep male voice spoke. Nathan. Ethan could barely believe it. Where the hell are you? What's going on? No time to explain over the phone. Nathan Gray, Ethan's closest friend from university, who had vanished 3 years ago without a trace, now resurfaced just as Ethan was about to be killed. Listen, behind the warehouse there's a motorbike. Keys under the seat. Take it and head to the address I'll send you. What the hell are you doing? Why is my mother? Ethan, you're being hunted. If you want to live, shut up and do as I say. Nathan's tone sharpened before he hung up. The phone buzzed with a new message, an address. Ethan clenched his jaw, stood up, and moved silently to the back of the warehouse. Just as Nathan said, a dusty motorcycle sat quietly in the shadows. He mounted the bike, slid the key in. The engine roared to life, the signal for his escape to begin. A shout erupted behind him. He's here. Without hesitation, Ethan twisted the throttle. The bike shot out of the warehouse like a black arrow slicing through the night. Gunshots echoed behind him, a bullet whizzing past his ear. He ducked low, gripping the handlebars tightly, heart racing. But as the city lights faded behind him, Ethan realized something far worse. The route Nathan gave him wasn't leading to safety. It was guiding him straight to an abandoned industrial zone, a place long claimed by those who never let outsiders leave alive. Nathan, what kind of trap are you leading me into? Ethan growled, but he had no other choice but to keep going. His phone rang again. This time it was Lily. Ethan nearly slammed the brakes in shock. He hesitated, then answered. Big brother. His sister's weak, tearful voice came through. Don't trust anyone. Nathan, he's. Beep. Beep. The call cut off abruptly. Ethan froze. Don't trust anyone. Nathan. A chill ran down his spine. Now, he didn't know who was friend or foe. His mother had betrayed him. His long-lost friend reappeared out of nowhere. And his sister. Was her warning genuine, or just another layer of deception? Ahead, the rusted iron gates of the industrial zone yawned open like the jaws of a beast, ready to swallow its prey. Ethan gripped the handlebars tighter, his gaze icy. If this was a trap, he'd turn it into a reverse hunt. The motorcycle screeched as it slid across the cold concrete floor of the abandoned industrial zone. Ethan killed the engine, removed his helmet, and scanned the foggy surroundings with sharp eyes. The entire area was shrouded in mist, the rusted steel frames towering like giant skeletons under the pale moonlight. His phone vibrated again. A message from Nathan. Warehouse number 7. Find the iron chest under the floor. You'll understand everything. Ethan narrowed his eyes, spotting the row of decrepit warehouses in the distance. His heart still pounded from Lily's brief, cryptic call, her warning like a thorn lodged deep in his chest. Don't trust anyone. But there was no turning back now. If he wanted to survive, he needed the truth. Ethan slipped through the corroded metal sheets, moving like a shadow. His instincts screamed that every dark corner could be hiding death. And they were right. As soon as his hand touched the door of warehouse number 7, a soft click echoed. A trap. Ethan dove to the side just as a steel arrow shot out from the door's crevice, embedding itself into the wall behind him. He gasped for breath, cold sweat dripping down his back. Welcome back, Ethan. A strange voice called from behind. Ethan spun around, facing a man in a black suit, his chiseled face sharp as a blade, eyes glinting with menace. Who the hell are you? Ethan backed away, eyes darting for an escape route. Doesn't matter. I'm just the keeper of your father's legacy. The man tossed a small USB drive toward Ethan. He told me, if the kid ever shows up, give him this, and then finish it. Gun drawn. The man fired. Ethan reacted on instinct, rolling to dodge the first bullet. The second grazed his cheek, a hot line of pain blooming. Without thinking, Ethan sprinted into the dark warehouse, heart pounding like a war drum. Behind him, the hitman's footsteps echoed, steady, merciless. In the pitch-black interior, Ethan's eyes scanned frantically for the iron chest beneath the floorboards Nathan had mentioned. There, a loose plank in the corner. Ethan yanked it up with all his strength, revealing a dusty, time-worn metal chest. Bang! The warehouse door slammed open. The hitman stepped in, gun aimed squarely at Ethan. "Run, boy. Let's see if you're faster than a bullet." Ethan gritted his teeth, fingers flying across the rusted keypad on the chest's lid. What's the damn code? Suddenly, a number flashed in his mind, his father's birthday. With shaking hands, he entered, 1206. Click. The lid sprang open just as a bullet tore through the air. Ethan snatched the contents, a sleek laptop and a thick stack of documents, then rolled into a dark corner. The bullet struck the chest, sparks flying. The hitman snarled, charging forward. But Ethan was quicker. He hurled an old oil barrel toward the man and struck a match. Whoosh! Flames erupted, engulfing half the warehouse. Using the smoke as cover, Ethan bolted out, clutching the laptop and files tightly. Behind him, screams echoed through the inferno. Ethan sat in a dimly lit room, blood and soot smeared across his face. Nathan stood before him, casually sipping a cup of coffee. "You almost died, you know," Nathan remarked, a hint of sarcasm in his voice. Ethan didn't respond, his eyes locked on the laptop screen. Lines of encrypted data scrolled past. But what froze his blood was the title of a file in the center of the screen. Project Legacy, the Shadow Organization. Author, Charles Carter. "Who was my father, Nathan?" Ethan whispered, his hand clenching into a fist. Nathan sighed, his gaze darkening. "He wasn't the man you thought he was, Ethan. Charles Carter was once the leader of a shadow organization behind countless disappearances, money laundering, and internal purges. But he wanted out." Ethan felt his heart constrict. He wanted out. Yeah, and it cost him his life. Nathan pointed at the screen. "What you're holding is the entire evidence file of that organization. And now, they, including your mother, won't stop until you're dead." Ethan leaned back, closing his eyes. His mind spun. The father he admired, a criminal kingpin. The mother he trusted, the heir to darkness. And himself, the one holding the key to destroy an underground empire. Nathan placed a firm hand on Ethan's shoulder, his voice steady. "Now you know why I came back. Because of Project Legacy. I owed your father a life, and I owe you a chance to survive." Ethan opened his eyes, colder and sharper than ever. "I don't just want to survive. I want to end them all. There are only two kinds of people who dare step into this place, the insane, and those with nothing left to lose." Nathan spoke quietly as the two of them stood before a massive steel door, buried deep beneath the city, a location absent from any official maps. This was one of the underground bases of the Shadow Organization, and where Margaret Carter kept her darkest secrets. Ethan took a deep breath, his eyes devoid of hesitation. "Then today I'm both." Nathan let out a soft chuckle, though the tension in his eyes was impossible to hide. In front of them stretched a top-tier security system, heat sensors, infrared cameras, and deadly laser traps. Ethan flipped open his mini laptop, connecting to the underground network he and Nathan had built years ago when they were still freelance hackers. "I'll disable the outer defenses in 60 seconds. The rest," Ethan glanced at Nathan, "is a game of cat and mouse with death." Nathan tightened his grip on his pistol, a smirk playing at his lips. Inside the underground base, the air was chilling, thick with the scent of metal and danger. Flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows along endless hallways that twisted like a maze. Every footstep echoed, a grim reminder that once you entered here, there were only two outcomes: complete the mission or be buried within these walls. Ethan and Nathan moved swiftly, dodging thin red laser beams like dancers in a deadly performance. Sweat beaded on Ethan's forehead as they neared the central data room. Camera on the right corner. 2 guards. Nathan whispered, scanning with a thermal scope. Ethan nodded, pulling out a small EMP grenade. Beep. A soft click followed, and all electronic devices within 10 meters went dark. The 2 guards barely had time to react before Nathan took them down silently with 2 suppressed shots. "Move." Nathan dragged Ethan into the data room. Before them stood a colossal server, its blinking lights resembling the heartbeat of the entire organization. Ethan plugged a special USB into the main port, initiating the data transfer. 30%, 45%. Suddenly, the room lights turned blood red. Alarms blared, piercing and relentless. Shit, they've detected us. Nathan cursed, spinning towards the door. Bang, bang. Footsteps thundered closer, guns cocking. Hold them off. I need 2 more minutes. Ethan shouted, eyes glued to the progress bar. Nathan dashed into the hallway, taking cover behind a wall, returning fire at the approaching guards. 65%, 80%. Bullets ricocheted off the walls, chunks of concrete exploding. Nathan growled, dropping 2 more enemies, but they just kept coming. Then, a familiar voice crackled through the intercom. My dear Ethan, I knew you'd come. Ethan froze. Margaret, did you really think stealing my data would be that easy? This is a trap, son. And you just walked right into the wolf's jaws. 95%, 98%. Ethan clenched his jaw, determination blazing in his eyes. We'll see who bites who, mother. 100%. Transfer complete. Ethan yanked out the USB and sprinted from the room just as a grenade rolled inside. Boom. The explosion's shockwave hurled both men down the corridor. Ethan's ears rang, blood trickling down his temple. He scrambled up, dragging Nathan to his feet. Emergency exit. Left, Nathan yelled, his voice barely audible over the chaos. They bolted into a narrow tunnel, enemy footsteps pounding behind them. But as they slid through the final door, a shadow blocked their path. Lily. She stood there, clad in black tactical gear, gun in hand, her eyes cold as ice. I'm sorry, big brother. Her voice was void of emotion. Ethan froze, his heart sinking. Lily, you. Bang. A bullet tore through the air, aimed straight at Ethan. Drip, drip. Water dripped steadily. The metallic clang of chains echoed. Ethan jolted awake, his head throbbing. His wrists were shackled to a cold steel chair. In front of him stood Margaret and Lily, both gazing at him with the victorious eyes of predators. Welcome home, Ethan, Margaret purred, her smile dripping with malice. We have much to discuss. The screech of metal filled the cold stone room. The stench of blood, rust, and chemicals saturated the air, suffocating and vile. Ethan found himself once again in an interrogation chamber, windowless, escape-proof, illuminated only by a harsh overhead light. His wrists and ankles were bound with titanium cuffs, dried blood crusting around his wounds. Nearby, Lily stood with her back turned, watching a surveillance feed playing a video Ethan never expected to see. A man being tortured. His father, Charles Carter. Ethan strained against his restraints, his eyes blazing red. Turn it off, he roared. Lily, stop it. Lily turned around, her eyes hollow. You need to see it. You need to know who father really was. The door creaked open. Margaret entered, as composed as if she had just come from afternoon tea. She set a glass of red wine on the stainless steel table and sat across from Ethan. My dear son, finally awake. Ethan stared at her, no longer with mere hatred. In his eyes now was something far more dangerous, the calm before a storm. Why? Margaret tilted her head, amused by his naive question. Because I gave birth to a mistake. Charles believed you could inherit his empire. But he was weak. He wanted to walk away, to destroy everything. And, darling, traitors must die. She caressed the rim of her wine glass. Just like you now. Ethan clenched his jaw. A strange silence settled. So what now? Kill me? Erase the evidence. Margaret laughed lightly. Oh no, dear. You're going to work for me. She placed a tablet on the table. The screen displayed Ethan's secret bank account. Over $20 million. The fortune he thought had been frozen. You've proven smarter than I thought. Surviving traps, assassins, even hacking my central system. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. But you lack one thing, power. And me? I lack time. Ethan's eyes narrowed. You're naming me as your successor? Margaret smirked. No, darling. I'm naming you as my scapegoat. On the helicopter, 3 hours later, Ethan sat bound, his head covered by a black cloth bag, the roar of the helicopter blades thundering in his ears. The cold bite of steel cuffs dug into his wrists and ankles. Somewhere beside him, Two guards kept silent watch. But there was one thing Margaret Carter hadn't accounted for. Nathan was still alive, and he was tracking this very helicopter through the GPS chip he had hidden inside Ethan's shoe. Cut scene, the underground network. Nathan sat in a dark room, screens flickering around him. Beside him, a figure emerged from the shadows. Eleanor Carter, the grandmother everyone believed long dead. She lit a cigarette, the flame from her Zippo reflecting in her sharp, calculating eyes. "Start it, Nathan. It's time to flip the board." Deep beneath the enemy's stronghold, Ethan and Eleanor navigated through a hidden tunnel, the concrete walls pressing in like the breath of death itself. In Ethan's hand, the silver ring glimmered faintly, the key to unlock the final door. "Ahead," Eleanor whispered, pointing to a massive steel door marked with a serpent coiled around a sword. This was the vault containing the death list, detailed records of every figure behind Project Legacy, and the unspeakable crimes buried over 3 decades. Ethan stepped forward, inserting the ring into the lock. A click echoed ominously as the door slowly creaked open, revealing a sterile white room filled with hundreds of data drives and glowing monitors. But waiting for them inside were Margaret and Lily. "Did you really think your dear grandmother was leading you to freedom?" Margaret sneered, her gun aimed steadily at Eleanor. Lily stepped forward, her gaze conflicted but resolute. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I can't go against Mother." Ethan's fists clenched, his cold stare shifting between the two women. "So this was all a game? Even you, Grandma?" Eleanor offered a sad smile. "No, Ethan. I truly wanted you to end this. But Margaret always stays one step ahead." Margaret sauntered closer, her voice dripping with honeyed venom. "Come now, my son. Don't be foolish. Hand over the USB and the ring. Together, we'll rule this world." Ethan let out a dry, bitter laugh, pulling the USB from his pocket and holding it up. "You really think I'm that easy to manipulate?" Margaret's eyes darkened. "You have no choice." Without a word, Ethan pressed a hidden button on his wristwatch. A soft beep filled the room. The monitors behind him lit up, flashing a message. "Data uploaded, public server. All files now accessible worldwide." Margaret's face drained of color. "Impossible." Ethan's smile was ice cold. The moment Grandma unlocked this room, the data auto-synced to the global network. Every secret, every crime, now belongs to the world. Lily stood frozen, her lips trembling. You planned this all along." Margaret screamed in rage, raising her gun to fire. Bang! The gunshot echoed, but it wasn't from Margaret's weapon. Eleanor stood firm, her pistol still smoking. Margaret collapsed, blood pooling around her lifeless body. Lily fell to her knees beside her mother, sobbing uncontrollably. She looked up at Ethan and Eleanor, her eyes burning with hatred. "You think it's over? Project Legacy isn't just my mother. It's an immortal empire." Ethan approached slowly, his gaze heavy with sorrow. "No, Lily. When light exposes darkness, every empire falls." Lily let out a bitter laugh, then suddenly drew a hidden pistol from her jacket. Bang! Ethan flinched, but the bullet wasn't meant for him. Lily collapsed beside her mother, ending her own life with a single shot. Silence engulfed the room. 6 months later, news outlets around the world exploded with headlines. Shadow Empire Project Legacy exposed. Hundreds of politicians and CEOs arrested in global crackdown. Anonymous hero behind the biggest scandal of the century. No one knew who the hero was. Ethan had vanished from the face of the earth, along with Eleanor. In a quiet seaside cafe, Eleanor sipped her tea, her gaze calm as she watched the waves roll in. Ethan stood by the window, staring into the horizon. "Do you regret it?" Eleanor asked softly. Ethan shook his head, a faint, bittersweet smile tugging at his lips. "No, but I've learned that freedom sometimes is just a quiet room where no one's left to betray you." Eleanor nodded, her eyes reflecting a deep, unspoken sadness. On the corner of their table, a burner phone vibrated. A message flashed from an unknown number. "A new game is about to begin, Ethan Carter. Don't get too comfortable in peace. PL." Ethan's eyes darkened as he read the message. He knew. Darkness never truly disappears. It merely waits for the right moment to return.